All right, today should be a nice, quick and easy video. We are going to be rotating tires on my 2016 GMC Canyon. This process is pretty similar for any pickup truck. There'd be some small things we'll do differently if we're going to do it on a car. I'll probably do that in another video. All we're going to need today is some sort of jack. We're using a Harbor Freight Daytona 4-ton floor jack. And then we're using a 6-ton jack stand as well. And then to get the actual lug nuts off, I'm going to be using a DeWalt 20-volt half-inch impact driver. You don't need that part. That could be done with a ratchet or a breaker bar. It just makes it a lot simpler. I will say, if you're going to do it without some sort of impact driver, whether it be an air-powered one or an electric one, you need to loosen each lug nut before you jack this up, because it can be difficult to do that once it's in the air. So you would break each one loose and then snug it back up, and that'll be plenty to hold the vehicle up until you jack it up. I do want to say before we get started, this is a simple process, but it's also a very dangerous process. So what I want to emphasize is that doing this with just a jack could be a life or death decision. It's very easy to hurt yourself doing this. We all take risks. You have to decide what your comfort level is. There are a lot of people that have died from vehicles falling on them. So I take that very seriously, and we're going to be using a jack stand. This is a 6-ton jack stand, which I believe means the pair holds 6 tons. So this itself holds 3 tons, which means that we're talking 6,000 pounds. That's more than this truck weighs. And it's only under half of it. So plenty of capacity. I also will just throw out there, if you have an old jack stand that does not have a locking pin, a way to slide this pin in and make sure that it's not going to fall, I highly recommend you upgrade them. Harbor Freight had a whole thing, a whole lawsuit where people were bumping them, vehicles were falling on them. Huge deal. Having that safety pin is everything, in my opinion. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get to it here. What we're going to do is we're going to move every tire on this thing to a different spot. There's a very easy way to do this. It's going to be 3 steps. We're going to do one side, the other side, and then the back. So we're going to start here on the passenger side. We're going to jack this up. We're going to put a jack stand underneath, and then we're going to swap the front and back tires. We're going to get everything right. We're going to lower it down, and we're going to go do the other side. Final step is going to be to do the back. We're going to lift the back by the rear axle. We're going to swap the left and right, and then we're done. And then every tire is in a new spot. 2 of the tires have switched directions. Every few times you do this, every tire has spun in every direction on every side. It sounds complicated, but it's not. So without further ado, let's get this thing jacked up, and we will go ahead and get these tires swapped. Okay, we've gone just high enough so that every wheel is off the ground. I also have the emergency brake on to ensure that this thing doesn't go sliding on us here. Let me show you where I've got the jack and how we're going to position the jack stand. All right, let's talk jack location. This is centered on our frame rail. I picked a spot a little toward the back just because it's a little harder to get the back tire off the ground. I probably could have gone a little further forward, but the important thing is both tires are off the ground. It's a little hard to see, but it is off. And now we want to find a spot for our jack stand somewhere in here. I've lifted this up as high as it will go. You can see it's not quite touching. You kind of have the option here. Do I move this until it is touching? Do I set it down on this? I will be honest, I typically just go with close like this, and then I put my safety pin in. And what I'm going to do is just do this quickly. This is very close to touching. Chances are if this jack fails, it's going to very slowly settle, and it's going to sit on this jack stand. I'm going to trust this. The alternative would be to lower it onto this and then apply a little bit of pressure with the jack. This is just me. Probably the better thing to do is to lower it, but this is how I do it. It's just a secondary safety thing. I'm not going under the truck. If I was going under the truck, I wouldn't do it this way. I would put the weight on the jack stands, and I would test it before I go under. All right, now that we're supported, we're going to go ahead and zip the lug nuts off on both wheels and swap them up. You always want to do this in a crisscross pattern, not a circle. You want to try to prevent the tension on the wheel to be all in one place. So by crisscrossing, it helps with that. Now, before I put this back on, this is a golden opportunity to see things that you can't see when the wheel's on. So I always take a look at the brakes, at the caliper. Is there any fluid leaking? Is something not looking right? Other than a little bit of rust, everything looks fine here. So we're gonna go ahead and put this back on. Okay, so the age-old debate with putting on wheels is, do you use a torque wrench or do you use an impact driver? The correct way is to use the torque wrench. You find out what the right spec is for your lug nuts and you torque them in a star pattern. However, a lot of people don't do that, myself included. There are some bolts I'll do that with. To me, it's just not worth it with these. I'm not gonna sit here and just let this thing ugga-dugga nonstop. I'm just gonna be gentle with it, do a couple clicks, make sure it's snug. I've never had an issue with that. That's just me. It's your car, you choose. The other thing I'm gonna do is just very lightly start all of these before I really go at it. I wanna make sure the wheel's tight against the brake rotor before I really tighten this down. Okay, now that every lug nut is touching, I'm gonna do my star pattern, and I'm just gonna give these a couple ugga-duggas on each one, and then I'll go back and check them with just a click or two just to make sure they're all still tight at the end. All right, this side's good. The one other thing that I checked up front is I grabbed the wheel side to side, went like this, top to bottom, went like this. Side to side tells me if there's something in the steering system, usually a tie rod that's wearing out. If there's a significant amount of wiggle, there's probably an issue. If there's a significant amount of wiggle top to bottom, it could be a control arm issue or it could be a wheel bearing issue if it's all around. These look good, so I'm gonna pull our jack stand and we'll swap over to the other side. All right, let's talk step three. Step three is the rear axle swapping left and right tires. There's another safety element here. We're gonna lift by the pumpkin, which is the rear differential. We're gonna put the jack under there, we're gonna lift it up. Now, when we did the sides, we had the emergency brake on, which kept the truck from rolling. But be aware that the emergency brake only stops the rear wheels. So, my truck right now is on a very slight incline, but even if it wasn't, there is a risk when you lift the back up that the whole truck can roll. So we're gonna chock the front wheels using either wheel chocks or pieces of wood. Okay, now that we've got the front chocked, we're gonna bring our jack under and we're gonna put it right under here. That's the rear differential. We're gonna lift that. It's gonna lift the whole back of the truck, and then we're gonna swap our two sides. Now, I should put jack stands under each side of this. I'm not going to, because if the jack fails, it will come straight down, it will stay on the jack. I'm not going under it. Again, this is a risk that I'm choosing to take. The right way to do this would be to put a jack stand under the axle tube here, and then again on this side. In my opinion, it's not necessary. A lot of people, I'm sure, will disagree with me. I would never ever go underneath this vehicle without doing that. But for this, I'm going to quickly swap the two, not go under the vehicle. We should be totally fine. That's it, nice and easy. Tires are rotated. This is something you want to do at least a couple times a year. I'm not gonna lie, it's probably been a year for me. These all-terrain tires that I have in my truck start getting really noisy after a while if I don't do this. So they're starting to get bad, I just swapped them. The more you do this, the longer you're gonna get out of your tires. So there's definitely an advantage to doing this. You can absolutely take it somewhere and have them do it. To me, it's just a good way to check and see what's going on under my truck and see if anything else needs to be addressed. So Hope this helps. If it did, I would really appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe to my channel, Baker Makes It. If you have any questions, or if you feel like there's a better way I could have done something, definitely comment below. I'm always looking to learn new things. I do want to emphasize again, I'm not suggesting you do it exactly how I do it. That's just how I do it. And so I take on some risks in the way that I do it, but it's just how I've always done it. So if you have any tips, tricks, please comment below, and I hope you'll subscribe to this channel to catch future videos. Thank you.